Welcome to this video entitled Introduction to Endocrinology and Principles of Endocrine Pharmacotherapy. The endocrine system is the body's communication network. It uses hormones to send messages between organs and tissues. These messages control growth, energy, mood, metabolism, and reproduction. Every gland has a special role. Together, they keep the body balanced and functioning smoothly. In this lesson, we explore how endocrine glands are organized and how they work together. We look at major glands like the pituitary, thyroid, adrenal glands, and pancreas. Each gland releases hormones into the bloodstream to target specific organs. These hormones act like chemical messengers, guiding important body processes every second. Next, we examine how hormones are made, stored, and released. Some hormones are produced from proteins, while others are made from lipids or amino acids. The body carefully controls hormone secretion based on internal needs. Even small changes in hormone levels can have major effects on health and body function. Hormones work by attaching to special receptors on or inside cells. These receptors trigger signaling pathways that tell cells how to respond. Some signals act quickly, while others create long-term changes in gene expression and metabolism. Understanding receptor signaling helps explain how hormones influence nearly every organ system in the body. We also discuss feedback mechanisms, which help maintain stability in the endocrine system. Negative feedback is the most common process. When hormone levels rise too high, the body reduces further secretion. Positive feedback is less common but plays an important role in processes like childbirth. These control systems help maintain homeostasis and prevent imbalance. The lesson also introduces key principles of endocrine pharmacotherapy. Many diseases result from hormone deficiency, excess production, or receptor dysfunction. Medications can replace missing hormones, block hormone activity, or improve receptor response. Understanding drug action is essential for safe and effective treatment of endocrine disorders. Finally, we focus on monitoring and clinical application. Healthcare professionals assess hormone levels, symptoms, and patient response to therapy. Regular monitoring helps guide treatment decisions and prevents complications. Clinical understanding of the endocrine system is critical in diagnosing and managing conditions such as diabetes, thyroid disorders, and adrenal diseases. By the end of this lesson, you will have a stronger understanding of endocrine physiology, hormone regulation, receptor signaling, and therapeutic management. Most importantly, you will see how the endocrine system supports balance, adaptation, and survival in everyday life. Endocrinology is the study of hormones and the glands that produce them. It explains how the body communicates internally to stay balanced and healthy. Hormones act like chemical messengers. They travel through the bloodstream and deliver instructions to different organs and tissues. The endocrine system may work quietly, but it influences almost every function in the body. From energy levels to mood changes, hormones are constantly at work behind the scenes. They help the body respond to daily challenges and maintain stability in changing environments. Endocrinology focuses on endocrine glands such as the pituitary gland, thyroid gland, adrenal glands, pancreas, and reproductive organs. Each gland produces specific hormones with unique functions. These hormones regulate important body activities and help different systems work together efficiently. One major role of hormones is controlling growth and development. During childhood and adolescence, hormones guide physical growth, bone formation, and sexual maturation. Even in adulthood, Hormones continue to support tissue repair and cellular function. Hormones also regulate metabolism, which is how the body produces and uses energy. They influence how quickly calories are burned, how nutrients are stored, and how cells generate fuel for daily activities. Without proper hormonal control, the body can struggle to maintain normal energy balance. Another key function of the endocrine system is stress adaptation. When the body experiences stress, hormones like cortisol and adrenaline help prepare the body for action. Heart rate increases, energy becomes available, and the body becomes more alert. This response is essential for survival and recovery. Reproduction is also strongly controlled by hormones. Hormonal signals regulate puberty, fertility, pregnancy, and reproductive health. These processes depend on precise communication between the brain, glands, and reproductive organs. Perhaps the most important role of endocrinology is maintaining physiologic homeostasis. Homeostasis means keeping the body's internal environment stable. Hormones help regulate blood sugar, blood pressure, body temperature, fluid balance, and electrolyte levels. Even small hormonal changes can affect overall health. When hormone levels become too high or too low, endocrine disorders can develop. Conditions such as diabetes, thyroid disease, and adrenal disorders are all linked to hormonal imbalance. Understanding endocrinology helps healthcare professionals diagnose these conditions and guide effective treatment. In simple terms, endocrinology helps us understand how the body stays coordinated, balanced, and responsive every day. It reveals how tiny chemical signals can control major body functions and support long-term health and survival. The endocrine system is the body's chemical messaging network. It controls growth, energy, mood, sleep, and reproduction. These glands release hormones directly into the bloodstream. Each hormone carries instructions to different parts of the body. The hypothalamus is the control center of the endocrine system. It connects the brain to the hormonal system. This tiny region helps regulate hunger, thirst, temperature, and emotions. It also tells the pituitary gland what to do next. The pituitary gland is often called the master gland. It controls many other endocrine glands in the body. Despite its small size, it has a huge job. It helps manage growth, reproduction, and water balance. The thyroid gland sits in the front of the neck. It controls how fast the body uses energy. This process is called metabolism. A healthy thyroid helps maintain energy, body temperature, and weight. Behind the thyroid are the parathyroid glands. These tiny glands regulate calcium levels in the blood. Calcium is essential for muscles, nerves, and strong bones. Even small changes in calcium levels can affect the entire body. The adrenal glands rest on top of the kidneys. They help the body respond to stress and danger. These glands release hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. They also help control blood pressure and metabolism. Inside the pancreas are clusters called pancreatic islets. These cells help regulate blood sugar levels. They produce insulin and glucagon. Together, these hormones keep blood sugar balanced throughout the day. The gonads are the reproductive glands. In males, they are the testes. In females, they are the ovaries. These glands produce hormones that control reproduction and development. They also influence physical changes during puberty. The pineal gland is a small gland deep inside the brain. It produces a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin helps regulate the sleep-wake cycle. This gland plays an important role in maintaining healthy sleep patterns. All endocrine glands work together as one connected system. When hormones stay balanced, the body functions smoothly. When hormone levels change too much, health problems can appear. That is why the endocrine system is so important to everyday life. Hormonal communication is one of the body's main control systems. It allows different organs to send messages to one another. These messages are carried by special chemicals called hormones. Hormones are produced by endocrine glands in the body. Once released, they travel through the bloodstream. The blood acts like a delivery network for these chemical signals. This allows hormones to reach cells almost everywhere in the body. Unlike nerve signals, hormonal communication is not instant. The nervous system works in milliseconds. Hormones usually take more time to produce an effect, but their impact can last much longer. Think of it this way. Nervous signaling is like sending a text message. Hormonal signaling is more like mailing an important letter. It takes longer to arrive, but the message can influence many places at once. Hormones help control major body functions every day. They regulate growth, metabolism, mood, sleep, and reproduction. They also help the body respond to stress and emergencies. One important feature of hormonal communication is its wide reach. A single hormone can affect multiple organs at the same time. This creates coordinated responses across the body. That is why hormones are said to have systemic effects. These effects are often longer lasting than nerve impulses. For example, adrenaline can keep the body alert for several minutes. Growth hormones can influence the body over many years. Some hormones even affect lifelong development and aging. Hormonal communication also depends on balance. Too much or too little hormone can disrupt normal body functions. That imbalance may lead to health conditions or disease. The body constantly monitors hormone levels to maintain stability. This process is called feedback regulation. It helps keep internal conditions steady and healthy. Even though hormonal signaling is slower, it is incredibly powerful. It helps the body adapt, grow, heal, and survive. Without hormones, many vital processes could not happen properly. In simple terms, hormones are the body's long-distance chemical messengers. They travel through the blood, act more slowly than nerves, and create effects that can last far beyond a single moment. The endocrine system helps keep the body stable and functioning properly. It works through hormones, which act as chemical messengers. These hormones travel through the bloodstream to different organs and tissues. Together, they help control many important body functions. One major function of the endocrine system is metabolic regulation. Metabolism is the process of turning food into energy. Hormones help decide how fast or slow this process happens. They influence body temperature, energy levels, and even weight management. The endocrine system also controls growth and development. From infancy to adulthood, hormones guide physical changes in the body. They help bones grow, muscles develop, and organs mature properly. Hormones also play a major role during puberty. Another important function is maintaining electrolyte balance. Electrolytes include minerals like sodium and potassium. These minerals are essential for nerves, muscles, and fluid balance. Hormones help keep the right amount of water and salts in the body. The endocrine system is also vital during stress adaptation. When the body faces danger or pressure, hormones prepare it to respond. Adrenaline can increase heart rate and energy almost instantly. Other hormones help the body recover after stressful situations. Reproduction is another key function controlled by hormones. The endocrine system regulates reproductive organs and processes. It controls fertility, menstrual cycles, sperm production, and pregnancy. Hormones also influence emotions and behaviors connected to reproduction. Calcium homeostasis is another essential responsibility of the endocrine system. This means maintaining stable calcium levels in the body. Calcium is important for strong bones and teeth. It also helps muscles contract and nerves send signals properly. Special hormones constantly monitor calcium in the blood. If calcium levels drop or rise too much, the body quickly responds. This balance is critical for normal body function and survival. All these functions work together every single day. Most of the time, people do not even notice it happening. But behind the scenes, hormones are constantly sending instructions and maintaining balance. Without the endocrine system, the body could not grow, adapt, or function properly. It is one of the body's most important communication and regulation systems. Hormonal homeostasis is all about balance. The endocrine system must keep hormone levels within a healthy range. Even small changes can affect how the body functions. That is why the body constantly monitors hormone activity. Hormones act like chemical instructions for the body. They control growth, energy, mood, sleep, and many other functions. For these processes to work properly, hormone levels must stay balanced. Too much hormone can create serious problems. This is known as a toxicity state or hormonal excess. When hormone levels rise too high, the body may become overstimulated. Organs and tissues can start working harder than they should. For example, too much thyroid hormone can speed up metabolism. A person may experience rapid heartbeat, sweating, and weight loss. Too much cortisol can increase stress effects in the body. Over time, this may weaken the immune system and affect overall health. On the other hand, too little hormone can also be dangerous. This is called hormonal deficiency. Without enough hormones, important body functions begin to slow down or fail. For example, low insulin levels can prevent proper blood sugar control. Low thyroid hormone can cause fatigue, weight gain, and low energy. A lack of growth hormone may affect normal development in children. The body relies on feedback systems to maintain balance. These systems constantly check hormone levels in the blood. If levels rise too high, hormone production slows down. If levels fall too low, the body signals glands to produce more. This process works like a thermostat controlling room temperature. The body is always adjusting hormone levels to stay stable. This stability is essential for survival and good health. Hormonal homeostasis also allows the body to adapt to changing conditions. It helps people respond to stress, illness, exercise, and changes in the environment. Without proper balance, normal body functions become difficult to maintain. In simple terms, hormones must stay in the right range. Too much can overwhelm the body. Too little can weaken important functions. Healthy hormone balance is one of the keys to overall well-being. Hormones can be grouped into different categories based on their chemical structure. Each type works in a slightly different way inside the body. But all hormones share one important job. They help cells communicate and coordinate body functions. One major group is peptide and protein hormones. These hormones are made from chains of amino acids. They are the most common type of hormones in the body. Examples include insulin and growth hormone. Peptide hormones usually travel easily through the bloodstream. However, they cannot pass directly through the cell membrane. Instead, they attach to receptors on the surface of cells. This triggers reactions inside the target cell. These hormones often produce fast effects in the body. They help regulate blood sugar, growth, metabolism, and water balance. Because they are water-soluble, they move quickly through the blood. Another major group is steroid hormones. These hormones are made from cholesterol. Unlike peptide hormones, Steroid hormones can pass through cell membranes. They enter cells and directly influence genetic activity. Steroid hormones usually act more slowly than peptide hormones, but their effects often last much longer. Examples include cortisol, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. These hormones play major roles in stress response, reproduction, and development. They also help regulate inflammation and immune function. Because they are fat-soluble, they travel differently in the bloodstream. The third group is amino acid-derived hormones. As the name suggests, these hormones come from single amino acids. Most are derived from the amino acid tyrosine. This group includes hormones such as adrenaline and thyroid hormones. Some amino acid-derived hormones act quickly like peptide hormones. Others behave more like steroid hormones. Their function depends on the chemical structure. Adrenaline prepares the body for emergency situations. It increases heart rate, breathing, and energy levels. Thyroid hormones help regulate metabolism and body temperature. These hormones are essential for normal growth and energy production. Even though hormones are classified into different groups, they work together constantly. They coordinate body functions and maintain internal balance. Each type has a unique structure, but all are essential for survival. In simple terms, hormones may be different chemically, but they all serve the same purpose. They help the body communicate, adapt, and function smoothly every single day. Peptide hormones are one of the most common types of hormones in the body. They are made from chains of amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins. These hormones help control many important body functions every day. Some well-known examples are insulin, glucagon, and growth hormone. Insulin helps lower blood sugar levels after eating. Glucagon works in the opposite way and raises blood sugar when needed. Growth hormone supports normal growth, tissue repair, and muscle development. Peptide hormones are water-soluble. This means they dissolve easily in the bloodstream. Because of this, they can travel quickly throughout the body. The blood acts like a transportation system for these chemical messengers. However, peptide hormones cannot pass directly through the cell membrane. The outer membrane of cells acts like a protective barrier. So instead of entering the cell, these hormones bind to receptors on the cell's surface. You can think of the receptor like a lock and the hormone like a key. When the hormone attaches to the receptor, it sends signals into the cell. These signals trigger specific actions depending on the hormone involved. One important feature of peptide hormones is their rapid onset. They usually produce effects very quickly. This makes them ideal for functions that require fast responses. For example, insulin must act rapidly after meals to control blood sugar levels. Glucagon must respond quickly when blood sugar drops too low. These fast reactions help the body maintain internal balance. Peptide hormones also play a major role in communication between organs. They help coordinate metabolism, growth, energy use, and fluid balance. Without them, many essential body processes would not function properly. Another interesting feature is that peptide hormones are usually short-lived. The body breaks them down fairly quickly after they do their job. This allows hormone levels to be adjusted rapidly when conditions change. Even though they act fast, peptide hormones must still remain carefully balanced. Too much or too little can disrupt normal body function. That is why the endocrine system constantly monitors hormone levels. In simple terms, peptide hormones are fast-acting chemical messengers. They travel easily in blood, attach to receptors on cell surfaces, and trigger quick responses throughout the body. Steroid hormones are a special group of hormones made from cholesterol. Even though cholesterol is often linked to health problems, The body actually needs it to produce these important hormones. Without cholesterol, steroid hormones could not be formed properly. Examples of steroid hormones include cortisol, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. These hormones help regulate stress, reproduction, growth, and metabolism. They also influence mood, immune function, and physical development. One important feature of steroid hormones is that they are lipid-soluble. This means they dissolve in fats instead of water. Because of this, they move through the bloodstream differently from peptide hormones. They often travel attached to special carrier proteins in the blood. Being lipid-soluble gives steroid hormones a major advantage. They can pass directly through the cell membrane. Unlike peptide hormones, they do not need to stay outside the cell. Instead, they enter the cell and interact with receptors inside it. These receptors are called intracellular receptors. The hormone and receptor work together like a command team. Once connected, they can influence the activity of genes inside the nucleus. This changes how the cell functions and what proteins it produces. Steroid hormones usually act more slowly than many other hormones. That is because changing gene activity takes time. The body must first create new proteins before visible effects appear. Even though the response is slower, the effects often last much longer. This is one of the defining features of steroid hormones. They may continue influencing the body for hours, days, or even longer. For example, cortisol helps the body respond to long-term stress. Estrogen and testosterone guide reproductive development and secondary sex characteristics. These hormones influence processes that happen gradually over time. Steroid hormones are especially important for long-term regulation. They help control inflammation, reproductive cycles, and energy balance. They also support growth, tissue repair, and adaptation to changing conditions. Because their effects are powerful and long-lasting, steroid hormone levels must stay carefully balanced. Too much or too little can disrupt normal body function. That is why the endocrine system constantly monitors hormone production. In simple terms, steroid hormones are fat-soluble chemical messengers made from cholesterol. They enter cells directly, bind to receptors inside the cell, and produce slower but longer-lasting effects throughout the body. Amino acid-derived hormones are hormones made from single amino acids. Most of them are produced from the amino acid tyrosine. Even though they come from small molecules, they have powerful effects throughout the body. This group mainly includes catecholamines and thyroid hormones. These hormones help regulate energy, stress responses, metabolism, and body activity. They are essential for everyday survival and adaptation. Catecholamines include hormones like adrenaline, noradrenaline, and dopamine. These hormones are released quickly during stress or emergencies. They prepare the body for what is often called the fight or flight response. When adrenaline is released, the heart beats faster. Breathing becomes quicker and energy levels rise. Blood flow is redirected to muscles and vital organs. This helps the body react rapidly to danger or pressure. Catecholamines usually act very fast. Their effects can happen within seconds. That is why they are important during sudden physical or emotional stress. Thyroid hormones are another type of amino acid-derived hormone. They are produced by the thyroid gland in the neck. These hormones help control metabolism and energy production. Thyroid hormones influence how fast the body uses energy. They also affect body temperature, heart rate, and growth. Nearly every cell in the body responds to thyroid hormones in some way. One interesting feature of amino acid-derived hormones is the unique signaling properties. Some behave like water-soluble hormones. Others act more like lipid-soluble hormones. Their behavior depends on the chemical structure. For example, catecholamines cannot pass directly through cell membranes. They bind to receptors on the cell surface and trigger quick responses. This makes them similar to peptide hormones. Thyroid hormones work differently. They can enter cells and bind to receptors inside the nucleus. This allows them to influence gene activity and protein production. Because of this, thyroid hormones often produce slower but longer-lasting effects. These hormones show how diverse the endocrine system can be. Even hormones from the same category can work in completely different ways. Some create rapid reactions, while others regulate long-term body functions. Amino acid-derived hormones are essential for maintaining balance in the body. They help people respond to stress, maintain energy, and support normal growth and metabolism. Without them, the body would struggle to adapt and function properly every day. Peptide hormones are made through a step-by-step process inside endocrine cells. The body carefully builds, stores, and releases these hormones when needed. This process allows hormones to act quickly and efficiently. The process begins with something called a preprohormone. This is the earliest inactive form of the hormone. It is produced inside the cell using instructions from DNA. At this stage, the molecule is larger than the final hormone. The preprohormone then enters a structure called the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Here, part of the molecule is removed and modified. Once this happens, it becomes a prohormone. A prohormone is still inactive or only partially active. It needs additional processing before it can function properly. The cell carefully prepares it for its final role. Next, the prohormone moves to the Golgi apparatus. This structure acts like a packaging and processing center inside the cell. Here, the prohormone is converted into the active hormone. The active hormone is now ready to perform its job in the body. After processing, the hormone is stored in tiny membrane-bound sacs called vesicles. These vesicles act like storage containers inside the cell. They keep hormones protected and ready for release at the right moment. This storage system is very important. It allows peptide hormones to be released rapidly when the body needs them. For example, insulin can be released quickly after eating a meal. Hormone release happens through a process called exocytosis. During exocytosis, the vesicle moves toward the cell membrane. The vesicle then fuses with the membrane and releases the hormone outside the cell. Once released, the hormone enters the bloodstream. From there, it travels to target organs and tissues throughout the body. The hormone then binds to specific receptors and triggers a response. This entire process is tightly controlled by the endocrine system. Cells release hormones only when they receive the proper signals. This helps maintain balance and prevents unnecessary hormone release. Peptide hormone synthesis shows how organized the body truly is. Every step, from preprohormone to active hormone, is carefully regulated. The body produces, stores, and releases hormones with remarkable precision. In simple terms, peptide hormones are built in stages, stored in vesicles, and released by exocytosis whenever the body needs fast chemical communication. Insulin biosynthesis is a great example of how peptide hormones are made inside the body. The process happens inside specialized beta cells in the pancreas. These cells carefully produce and prepare insulin before releasing it into the bloodstream. The process begins with the production of a molecule called proinsulin. Proinsulin is an inactive precursor of insulin. It contains extra sections that are not part of the final active hormone. Inside the cell, proinsulin is folded into its proper shape. This folding is very important for insulin to function correctly later on. The molecule is then packaged inside secretory vesicles. Next comes an important step called proinsulin cleavage. During this process, enzymes cut proinsulin into smaller parts. This cleavage produces two separate molecules. These are active insulin and a connecting fragment called C-peptide. Both insulin and C-peptide are released into the bloodstream together. They are produced in equal amounts during normal insulin synthesis. Even though C-peptide does not control blood sugar directly, it has major clinical importance. Insulin helps lower blood glucose levels after meals. It allows cells to absorb glucose and use it for energy. Without enough insulin, blood sugar can rise dangerously high. C-peptide is extremely useful in medical diagnosis. Doctors often measure C-peptide levels to understand how much insulin the body is producing naturally. This helps distinguish between different types of diabetes. For example, people with type 1 diabetes mellitus usually produce very little C-peptide. That is because the pancreas is no longer making enough insulin. In contrast, people with type 2 diabetes mellitus may still produce significant amounts of C-peptide. C-peptide testing can also help doctors detect insulin-producing tumors. It may also help determine whether insulin in the bloodstream comes from the body or from injections. This example shows how hormone synthesis is more than just hormone production. The body carefully processes and modifies molecules before they become fully active. Each step is essential for proper hormone function. Insulin biosynthesis also highlights the precision of the endocrine system. From proinsulin formation to cleavage and release, the process is tightly controlled. This ensures the body can regulate blood sugar effectively every day. In simple terms, proinsulin is converted into insulin and C-peptide through cleavage. Insulin controls blood sugar, while C-peptide provides valuable information for medical diagnosis and monitoring. Steroid hormone synthesis begins with cholesterol. Even though cholesterol is often discussed in relation to heart disease, it is also an essential building block in the body. Without cholesterol, steroid hormones could not be produced. Steroid hormones include cortisol, aldosterone, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. These hormones help regulate stress, reproduction, metabolism, and fluid balance. They are vital for normal body function and long-term health. The synthesis process mainly occurs inside endocrine cells. Two important cell structures are heavily involved. These are the mitochondria and the endoplasmic reticulum, often called the ER. The mitochondria are known as the powerhouses of the cell, but they also play a key role in the first steps of steroid hormone production. Inside the mitochondria, cholesterol is converted into early hormone precursors. After that, the molecules move to the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Here, additional chemical changes take place. These modifications gradually transform the precursor molecules into specific steroid hormones. Different endocrine glands produce different steroid hormones. The adrenal glands produce cortisol and aldosterone. The ovaries produce estrogen and progesterone. The testes mainly produce testosterone. One important feature of steroid hormone synthesis is enzyme regulation. Special enzymes control every step of the pathway. Each enzyme helps convert one molecule into another. Without the correct enzymes, hormone production cannot happen properly. These enzyme-regulated pathways are extremely precise. A small enzyme defect can significantly affect hormone levels. This may lead to endocrine disorders or metabolic diseases. For example, some genetic conditions prevent proper cortisol production. As a result, the body may produce abnormal amounts of other hormones instead. This shows how closely connected these pathways really are. Steroid hormone synthesis is also highly responsive to the body's needs. Hormone production can increase during stress, puberty, pregnancy, or illness. The endocrine system constantly adjusts hormone levels to maintain balance. Unlike peptide hormones, steroid hormones are usually not stored in large amounts. Instead, they are synthesized when needed. Once produced, they quickly diffuse out of the cell and enter the bloodstream. Because steroid hormones are lipid-soluble, they can easily cross cell membranes. This allows them to travel into target cells and influence gene activity directly. Their effects may take longer to appear, but they often last much longer. In simple terms, steroid hormone synthesis starts with cholesterol and depends on carefully controlled enzyme pathways inside the mitochondria and endoplasmic reticulum. Enzymes play a critical role in hormone production. They help convert one hormone precursor into another. When an important enzyme is missing or defective, hormone balance can be seriously disrupted. One well-known example is 21-hydroxylase deficiency. This enzyme is essential for making cortisol in the adrenal glands. Without it, the body cannot produce enough cortisol normally. Cortisol is a major stress response hormone. It helps regulate blood pressure, blood sugar, and metabolism. It also helps the body respond to illness and physical stress. When cortisol levels drop, the body tries to compensate. The brain sends stronger signals to the adrenal glands to make more hormones. But because the enzyme pathway is blocked, hormone production becomes abnormal. This condition is called congenital adrenal hyperplasia, or CAH. Congenital means the condition is present at birth. Hyperplasia refers to enlargement of the adrenal glands due to overstimulation. In congenital adrenal hyperplasia, hormone precursors build up inside the adrenal glands. Since they cannot become cortisol efficiently, they are redirected into other hormone pathways. This often leads to excessive production of androgen hormones. These hormonal imbalances can affect growth and development. Some children may experience early puberty or unusual physical changes. In severe cases, salt balance and blood pressure can also become dangerously abnormal. Symptoms can vary depending on the severity of the enzyme defect. Some forms appear shortly after birth. Others may not become noticeable until later in childhood or adolescence. Doctors diagnose congenital adrenal hyperplasia using hormone tests and genetic screening. Early diagnosis is very important for proper treatment and long-term health. One major treatment approach involves drug intervention strategies. Patients are often given replacement hormones to restore balance. For example, cortisol-like medications can help replace missing hormones. These medications also reduce excessive stimulation of the adrenal glands. As hormone levels normalize, abnormal hormone production decreases. This helps control symptoms and improve overall health. In some cases, treatment may also include medications that help regulate salt and water balance. Careful monitoring is important because hormone needs can change over time. This condition shows how a single enzyme defect can affect the entire endocrine system. Hormone pathways are highly connected and carefully regulated. Even one missing step can create major physiological changes. In simple terms, 21-hydroxylase deficiency disrupts cortisol production and can lead to congenital adrenal hyperplasia. Modern drug therapies help restore hormone balance and improve quality of life for affected patients. Thyroid hormone synthesis is a carefully organized process that happens inside the thyroid gland. These hormones help control metabolism, energy production, growth, and body temperature. Even small changes in thyroid hormone levels can affect the entire body. The process begins with iodide uptake. Iodide is a form of iodine obtained from food and water. The thyroid gland actively pulls iodide from the bloodstream into its cells. This step is extremely important because iodine is essential for thyroid hormone production. Once inside the thyroid gland, the iodide moves into the follicular cells. Here, the next step begins. This step is called oxidation. During oxidation, iodide is chemically converted into active iodine. A special enzyme called thyroid peroxidase helps carry out this reaction. Without this enzyme, thyroid hormone synthesis cannot proceed normally. After oxidation comes organification. In this step, the active iodine attaches to a large protein called thyroglobulin. This protein acts like a storage framework inside the thyroid gland. The iodine binds to specific amino acids called tyrosines on the thyroglobulin molecule. This creates smaller hormone building blocks known as MIT and DIT. These molecules are important intermediates in thyroid hormone formation. The next step is coupling. During coupling, these building blocks join together to form thyroid hormones. When one MIT combines with one DIT, the hormone T3 is formed. When two DIT molecules combine, the hormone T4 is produced. T3 and T4 are the major thyroid hormones in the body. T4 is produced in larger amounts, but T3 is more biologically active. Both hormones help regulate metabolism and energy use throughout the body. After synthesis, the hormones remain stored in the thyroid gland. This is unusual because many hormones are not stored for long periods. The thyroid can keep several weeks' worth of hormone reserves ready for release. When the body needs thyroid hormones, the gland releases them into the bloodstream. This release is controlled by signals from the pituitary gland and hypothalamus. Together, these organs carefully regulate thyroid activity. Thyroid hormone synthesis demonstrates how precise the endocrine system truly is. Each step must happen in the correct order for normal hormone production. Problems with iodine supply, enzymes, or regulation can lead to thyroid disease. In simple terms, thyroid hormone synthesis involves iodide uptake, oxidation, organification, and coupling before hormones are finally released to regulate metabolism and body function. Thyroid hormone production is one of the body's most carefully controlled chemical processes. It all begins with iodide, a mineral absorbed from the bloodstream into the thyroid gland. Special transport proteins pull iodide into thyroid cells like a conveyor belt, bringing in raw materials. Next comes oxidation. Here, iodide is converted into a more reactive form. An enzyme called thyroid peroxidase drives this important chemical step. Without this reaction, thyroid hormones cannot be created properly. Then comes organification. This is where activated iodine attaches to the amino acid tyrosine inside a protein called thyroglobulin. Think of it like adding building blocks onto a molecular framework. This process forms MIT and DIT, which are early hormone components. After that, coupling takes place. Two DIT molecules combine to form T4, also called thyroxine. One MIT and one DIT combine to form T3, the more active thyroid hormone. These hormones stay stored in the thyroid gland until the body needs them. Finally, the hormones are released into the bloodstream. When the brain signals through TSH, the thyroid responds by secreting T3 and T4. These hormones travel throughout the body and regulate metabolism, energy, temperature, and growth. Because this pathway is so important, it is also a major target for medications. One common drug is methimazole. Methimazole blocks thyroid peroxidase and slows hormone production. Doctors often use it to treat hyperthyroidism and Graves' disease. Another treatment is radioactive iodine. The thyroid naturally absorbs iodine, so radioactive iodine selectively enters thyroid tissue. It gradually destroys overactive thyroid cells while sparing most other organs. This therapy is commonly used for severe hyperthyroidism. Iodide blockade is another pharmacologic strategy. Large doses of iodide can temporarily suppress thyroid hormone release. This effect is useful during thyroid storm or before thyroid surgery. It helps calm an overactive gland quickly. These treatments show how understanding hormone synthesis leads directly to better medical care. By targeting specific biochemical steps, doctors can precisely control thyroid activity. That connection between biochemistry and therapy is one of the most fascinating parts of endocrinology. Hormone secretion is tightly regulated to keep the body stable and balanced. The endocrine system constantly monitors internal conditions and adjusts hormone levels when needed. This process helps maintain homeostasis every single day. One major control method is humoral regulation. In this system, hormone release is triggered by changes in blood levels of certain substances. A great example is blood glucose control. When glucose rises after a meal, the pancreas releases insulin. When glucose falls, glucagon is released instead. Calcium regulation works the same way. Low calcium levels stimulate parathyroid hormone secretion. That hormone then acts to restore calcium balance in the blood. It's a fast and efficient feedback system. Another important mechanism is neural control. Here, the nervous system directly stimulates hormone release. This allows the body to respond quickly during stress or emergencies. A classic example is the adrenal medulla. During fear or danger, nerve signals trigger the release of epinephrine and norepinephrine. These hormones increase heart rate, blood pressure, and energy availability. This is the famous fight or flight response. Neural control is extremely rapid. It helps the body react within seconds to changing situations. That speed is essential for survival. The third mechanism is hormonal control. In this system, one hormone stimulates the release of another hormone. This creates organized communication between endocrine glands. The hypothalamus and pituitary gland are central players in this process. The hypothalamus releases signaling hormones that act on the pituitary. The pituitary then stimulates other glands like the thyroid, adrenal glands, and gonads. For example, thyroid-stimulating hormone, or TSH, tells the thyroid gland to produce thyroid hormones. As thyroid hormone levels rise, they feed back to the brain and reduce further thyroid-stimulating hormone release. This is called negative feedback regulation. Negative feedback is one of the most important concepts in endocrinology. It prevents hormone levels from becoming too high or too low. Without it, the body could quickly lose internal balance. These three control systems work together constantly. Humoral signals monitor blood chemistry. Neural signals provide rapid responses. Hormonal signals coordinate long-term endocrine communication. Together, they create a highly organized network that keeps the body functioning smoothly. Every heartbeat, stress response, and metabolic adjustment depends on this precise hormonal regulation. Humoral regulation is one of the body's simplest and smartest ways of controlling hormone release. In this system, hormones respond directly to changes in the blood. The endocrine glands constantly monitor blood chemistry like internal sensors. A classic example is blood glucose regulation. After you eat, glucose levels in the bloodstream begin to rise. The pancreas detects this increase almost immediately. In response, beta cells release insulin into the blood. Insulin helps cells absorb glucose for energy or storage. It lowers blood sugar and prevents dangerously high glucose levels. This keeps the body's energy supply stable and balanced. When blood glucose drops, the body shifts gears. The pancreas decreases insulin release and increases glucagon secretion. Glucagon tells the liver to release stored glucose back into the bloodstream. This prevents blood sugar from falling too low. Another important example is calcium regulation. Calcium is essential for muscles, nerves, bones, and heart function. Even small changes in calcium levels can affect the entire body. When blood calcium falls, the parathyroid glands respond quickly. They release parathyroid hormone, also called PTH. Parathyroid hormone raises calcium levels by acting on bones, kidneys, and the intestines. It stimulates calcium release from bone storage. It also helps the kidneys conserve calcium instead of losing it in urine. At the same time, it increases vitamin D activation, which boosts calcium absorption from food. Once calcium levels return to normal, parathyroid hormone secretion decreases. This is a perfect example of negative feedback regulation. The body corrects the imbalance and then shuts the signal down. Humoral regulation is fast, efficient, and highly precise. It allows the endocrine system to respond directly to the body's immediate needs. No conscious effort is required. Everything happens automatically in the background. These feedback systems protect the body from dangerous fluctuations. Without insulin regulation, blood glucose could rise to harmful levels. Without calcium regulation, muscles and nerves could stop functioning properly. Humoral control shows how closely hormones are linked to everyday survival. Tiny chemical changes in the blood can trigger major physiologic responses. That's what makes endocrine regulation so powerful and fascinating. Neural regulation allows the endocrine system to respond with incredible speed. Instead of waiting for chemical changes in the blood, the nervous system sends direct signals to endocrine organs. This creates rapid, coordinated responses during stress or emergencies. One of the best examples is the adrenal medulla. The adrenal glands sit on top of the kidneys like small caps. Their inner region, called the adrenal medulla, is closely connected to the sympathetic nervous system. When the brain senses danger, stress, or excitement, the sympathetic nervous system becomes activated. This is the beginning of the famous fight or flight response. Nerve impulses travel quickly from the brain to the adrenal medulla. In response, the adrenal medulla releases epinephrine and norepinephrine into the bloodstream. These hormones are also called adrenaline and noradrenaline. They prepare the body for immediate action. Heart rate increases within seconds. Blood pressure rises to improve circulation. Breathing becomes faster and deeper. More glucose is released into the blood for quick energy. Blood flow is redirected toward muscles and away from less urgent functions like digestion. The pupils may dilate to improve vision during stressful situations. The body becomes more alert, focused, and physically prepared. This response is extremely fast because it combines the nervous system and endocrine system together. Nerves provide immediate activation. Hormones help extend and strengthen the response throughout the body. The adrenal medulla acts almost like a modified nerve center. That's why its hormone release can happen so rapidly. Within moments, the entire body shifts into a high-performance state. Neural regulation is essential for survival. It helps humans react to threats, intense exercise, emotional stress, and sudden danger. Without it, rapid adaptation would be much slower. Once the stressful event passes, the sympathetic activity decreases. Hormone levels gradually return to normal. The body then shifts back into a resting and recovery state. This balance between activation and recovery is extremely important. Too much prolonged stress can overload the system and affect long-term health. That's why the body carefully controls these responses through feedback mechanisms. Neural regulation shows how closely the nervous system and endocrine system work together. One uses electrical signals. The other uses hormones. Together, they help the body respond quickly and efficiently to the world around it. Hormonal regulation is one of the body's most organized communication systems. It works through a network called the hypothalamic pituitary target gland axis. This axis connects the brain to endocrine glands throughout the body. Everything begins in the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is a small but powerful region located in the brain. It constantly monitors the body's internal environment. It responds to stress, temperature, sleep, emotions, and nutrient levels. When the hypothalamus detects a need, it releases regulatory hormones. These hormones travel a short distance to the pituitary gland. The pituitary is often called the master gland of the endocrine system. The pituitary then releases stimulating hormones into the bloodstream. These hormones target specific endocrine glands in the body. That's why this system is called a target gland axis. One important example is the thyroid axis. The hypothalamus releases TRH, or thyrotropin-releasing hormone. Thyrotropin-releasing hormone stimulates the pituitary to release TSH. TSH then travels to the thyroid gland and stimulates thyroid hormone production. Another example is the adrenal axis. The hypothalamus releases CRH. CRH tells the pituitary to produce ACTH. ACTH then stimulates the adrenal cortex to release cortisol. The reproductive system also works through this pathway. GnRH from the hypothalamus stimulates the release of LH and FSH from the pituitary. These hormones regulate ovarian and testicular function. This system allows the brain to coordinate hormone activity throughout the entire body. It creates precise timing and balanced endocrine communication. One of the most important features of this axis is negative feedback. As hormone levels rise, they send signals back to the hypothalamus and pituitary. This slows further hormone release and prevents overproduction. For example, high thyroid hormone levels reduce thyrotropin-releasing hormone and TSH secretion. High cortisol levels suppress CRH and ACTH release. This keeps hormone concentrations within a healthy range. Without negative feedback, hormone systems could become dangerously overactive. Too much cortisol, thyroid hormone, or reproductive hormone can disrupt normal physiology. The hypothalamic pituitary axis is essential for growth, metabolism, reproduction, and stress adaptation. It links the nervous system and endocrine system into one coordinated control network. This is why endocrinology is often described as the science of communication inside the body. Tiny chemical signals from the brain can influence nearly every organ and tissue. That level of coordination is what keeps the body functioning smoothly every day. Negative feedback is the most common control mechanism in the endocrine system. It helps the body maintain balance and prevent hormone levels from becoming too high or too low. This process is essential for survival and normal body function. The idea is actually very simple. When hormone levels rise enough to produce the desired effect, the body sends signals to slow further hormone release. It's like a thermostat turning off a heater once the room reaches the right temperature. This system keeps the internal environment stable. That stability is called homeostasis. Without negative feedback, hormone systems could quickly spiral out of control. A classic example is blood glucose regulation. After eating, blood sugar levels increase. The pancreas responds by releasing insulin. Insulin helps cells absorb glucose and lowers blood sugar back to normal. As glucose levels fall, insulin secretion decreases. The original stimulus is removed, so the hormone response slows down. That's negative feedback in action. The thyroid gland also works through this mechanism. The hypothalamus releases TRH, which stimulates the pituitary gland. The pituitary then releases TSH to activate the thyroid gland. The thyroid produces T3 and T4 hormones. As thyroid hormone levels rise, they signal the hypothalamus and pituitary to reduce TRH and TSH release. This prevents excessive thyroid hormone production. The body maintains a careful hormonal balance. Cortisol regulation follows the same principle. Stress activates the hypothalamus and pituitary, which stimulate cortisol release from the adrenal glands. As cortisol levels increase, they suppress further stimulation from the brain. This prevents prolonged overactivation of the stress response. Negative feedback protects the body from dangerous extremes. Too much hormone can be toxic. Too little hormone can lead to organ dysfunction and physiologic failure. The body constantly adjusts hormone output to stay within a healthy range. This mechanism also allows the endocrine system to adapt to changing conditions. Hormone levels can rise during stress, exercise, fasting, or illness. Once the challenge passes, negative feedback helps return the body to normal. Most endocrine disorders involve some disruption of feedback regulation. For example, tumors or gland failure can interfere with normal hormonal control loops. That's why understanding feedback mechanisms is so important in medicine. Negative feedback may seem simple, but it's one of the most powerful regulatory systems in human physiology. It quietly works in the background every second of the day. And it's one of the main reasons the body stays stable and functional despite constant change. Positive feedback is much less common in the endocrine system. But when it happens, the effects can be dramatic and powerful. Unlike negative feedback, positive feedback amplifies a response. Instead of slowing a process down, it pushes the system forward. A classic example is the ovulatory LH surge in females. LH stands for luteinizing hormone. During the menstrual cycle, estrogen levels gradually rise. At first, estrogen suppresses hormone release through negative feedback. But near ovulation, everything changes. High estrogen levels begin stimulating the hypothalamus and pituitary gland instead. This triggers a sudden surge of LH release. The pituitary rapidly floods the bloodstream with luteinizing hormone. That LH surge is the signal for ovulation. It causes the mature ovarian follicle to rupture. The egg is then released from the ovary. This is a key step in human reproduction. Positive feedback creates a fast and amplified hormonal response. The process continues until a specific event is completed. After ovulation occurs, hormone levels shift again. The system returns to negative feedback control. This balance prevents hormones from staying excessively elevated. It helps maintain normal endocrine function. Positive feedback also appears in other body systems. For example, oxytocin release during childbirth follows a similar pattern. As contractions increase, more oxytocin is released. That stronger oxytocin causes even stronger contractions. So, Positive feedback is rare but highly effective. It is designed for rapid, decisive biological events. Hormones can only affect cells that have the right receptors. Think of receptors as specialized biological locks. The hormone acts like a key. When the key fits, the cell responds. There are two major types of hormone receptors: surface receptors and intracellular receptors. Surface receptors are located on the cell membrane. They are used by water-soluble hormones. These hormones cannot pass through the lipid membrane directly, so they send messages from outside the cell. Peptide hormones and catecholamines use this pathway. Examples include insulin and epinephrine. When the hormone binds the surface receptor, signaling pathways activate inside the cell. These pathways are called second messenger systems. Common messengers include CAMP and calcium ions. They rapidly amplify the hormonal signal. This allows cells to respond very quickly. Effects can happen within seconds or minutes. Surface receptor signaling is ideal for fast body responses, like stress reactions or blood glucose regulation. Intracellular receptors work differently. They are found inside the cytoplasm or nucleus. These receptors are used by lipid-soluble hormones. Steroid hormones are the classic example. Because they dissolve in lipids, these hormones cross the cell membrane easily. They enter the cell without needing a surface receptor. Once inside, the hormone binds its intracellular receptor. The hormone receptor complex then moves to the nucleus. There, it interacts directly with DNA. This changes gene transcription and protein synthesis. The response is slower compared to surface signaling, but the effects usually last much longer. Thyroid hormones also act through intracellular receptors. Even though they come from amino acids, they behave like steroid hormones. So the body uses different receptor systems for different needs. Fast responses often use surface receptors. Long-term cellular changes usually involve intracellular receptors. Together, these systems help hormones coordinate nearly every body function. G-protein coupled receptors, or GPCRs, are one of the most important signaling systems in the body. They help cells respond quickly to hormones and neurotransmitters. These receptors are found on the cell surface. They are especially important for water-soluble hormones. When a hormone binds to the receptor changes shape. That activates a nearby G protein inside the cell membrane. The activated G protein then triggers internal signaling pathways. Two major pathways are the CAMP pathway and the IP3 pathway. In the CAMP pathway, the enzyme adenylate cyclase becomes activated. This enzyme converts ATP into cyclic AMP, or CAMP. CAMP acts as a second messenger inside the cell. It quickly activates enzymes and cellular responses. The IP3 pathway works a little differently. It involves phospholipase C activation inside the membrane. This produces IP3 and DAG as second messengers. IP3 then stimulates calcium release from intracellular stores. Calcium acts like a powerful signaling molecule. It can trigger muscle contraction, secretion, and many metabolic processes. One major advantage of GPCR signaling is rapid amplification. A single hormone molecule can activate many G proteins at once. Those G proteins activate many enzymes, and those enzymes produce huge numbers of second messengers. This creates a very strong cellular response from a tiny signal. It is an efficient communication system. Hormones like epinephrine use G-protein-coupled receptors during stress responses. That is why the body reacts so fast during emergencies. Heart rate rises quickly. Blood glucose levels also increase within minutes. G-protein coupled receptors are also major targets for medications. Many common drugs work by activating or blocking these receptors. So, G-protein coupled receptors are essential for rapid hormone signaling. They allow cells to communicate quickly, efficiently, and powerfully. Tyrosine kinase receptors are another major type of cell surface receptor. They play a key role in growth, metabolism, and cell survival. One of the most important examples is the insulin receptor. This receptor helps regulate blood glucose levels. When insulin binds to its receptor, the receptor activates itself. This process is called autophosphorylation. The receptor adds phosphate groups to specific tyrosine molecules. That activates signaling proteins inside the cell. Unlike GPCRs, tyrosine kinase receptors have built-in enzyme activity. They do not rely on separate G proteins. Once activated, multiple signaling pathways begin working simultaneously. These pathways control metabolism, protein synthesis, and cell growth. One major effect is glucose uptake into cells. Insulin tells muscle and fat cells to absorb glucose from the bloodstream. Special transporters called GLUT4 move to the cell membrane. This allows glucose to enter the cell efficiently. Inside the cell, glucose can be used for energy. It can also be stored as glycogen for later use. Insulin signaling also promotes fat synthesis and protein production. At the same time, it suppresses glucose production by the liver. These combined actions help lower blood glucose levels. That keeps energy balance stable throughout the body. Tyrosine kinase signaling is fast and highly organized. It allows cells to coordinate complex metabolic responses. Problems with insulin receptor signaling can lead to disease. Insulin resistance is a major feature of type 2 diabetes mellitus. In insulin resistance, cells respond poorly to insulin. As a result, blood glucose levels remain elevated. Over time, this can damage blood vessels, nerves, and organs. That is why proper receptor signaling is so important. Tyrosine kinase receptors are also involved in cancer biology. Abnormal activation can cause uncontrolled cell growth. Because of this, many cancer drugs target tyrosine kinase pathways. These receptors are major therapeutic targets in modern medicine. So, insulin receptor signaling is more than just glucose control. It is a central system for metabolism, growth, and cellular communication. Intracellular receptors are found inside the cell rather than on the surface. They are used by lipid-soluble hormones. Steroid hormones are classic examples. Thyroid hormones also use this signaling method. Because these hormones dissolve in lipids, they can pass directly through the cell membrane. They do not need surface receptors to enter the cell. Once inside, the hormone binds to its specific intracellular receptor. This receptor may be located in the cytoplasm or nucleus. The hormone receptor complex then travels to the nucleus if needed. There, it binds directly to DNA. This interaction controls gene transcription. In simple terms, it turns certain genes on or off. The cell then begins producing new proteins. Those proteins create the hormone's biological effects. This process takes more time compared to surface receptor signaling. Responses may take hours before becoming noticeable, but the effects are usually long-lasting. That is one major advantage of intracellular signaling. Steroid hormones like cortisol influence metabolism and stress responses. Estrogen and testosterone regulate reproductive functions and development. Thyroid hormones control metabolic rate and energy production. They also influence growth and brain development. Because these hormones regulate gene activity, their effects are widespread. They can change how entire cells function over time. Intracellular receptors are highly specific. Only target cells with the correct receptor can respond. This specificity helps maintain precise hormonal control. It prevents unnecessary activation in unrelated tissues. Problems with intracellular receptor signaling can lead to disease. For example, resistance to steroid hormones can disrupt normal physiology. Some cancers are also influenced by steroid hormone receptors. Breast and prostate cancers are important examples. That is why certain cancer treatments block hormone receptors directly. These therapies reduce hormone-driven cell growth. So, intracellular receptors are powerful regulators of long-term cellular activity. They connect hormones directly to gene expression and protein production. This system allows hormones to create deep and lasting changes in the body. Hormone replacement therapy is one of the biggest success stories in modern medicine. It works by replacing hormones the body can no longer produce properly. The goal is simple: restore balance and keep normal body functions running smoothly. Insulin therapy is a classic example. People with diabetes may not produce enough insulin naturally. Without insulin, glucose stays trapped in the blood. Cells cannot use it efficiently for energy. Injected insulin helps move glucose into cells. This lowers blood sugar and restores metabolic balance. Different insulin types act at different speeds. Some work rapidly after meals. Others provide slow, steady control throughout the day. Doctors often combine insulin schedules carefully. The aim is to imitate the body's natural insulin rhythm. Levothyroxine is another common hormone replacement drug. It replaces thyroxine, also called T4. This treatment is used in hypothyroidism. That means the thyroid gland is underactive. Low thyroid hormone slows many body processes. Patients may feel tired, cold, or mentally sluggish. Levothyroxine restores normal metabolic activity. Energy levels and organ function gradually improve. The dose must be carefully adjusted. Too little leaves symptoms uncontrolled. Too much may overstimulate the heart and metabolism. Hydrocortisone replaces cortisol in adrenal insufficiency. Cortisol is essential for stress response and survival. Without enough cortisol, blood pressure may fall dangerously low. Fatigue and weakness can also become severe. Hydrocortisone helps maintain blood pressure and energy balance. It also supports normal immune and metabolic function. Patients sometimes need higher doses during illness or surgery. This mimics the body's natural stress response. A major principle in hormone replacement is physiologic mimicry. That means copying the body's normal hormone patterns as closely as possible. The endocrine system usually releases hormones in rhythms and cycles. Hormone therapy tries to recreate those natural fluctuations. Timing matters just as much as dosage. Some hormones work best in pulses. Others require steady daily replacement. Modern medicine uses advanced formulations for better control. Long-acting injections and slow-release tablets are good examples. Careful monitoring is also essential. Doctors track symptoms, blood levels, and treatment response over time. Too much replacement can be harmful. Too little may leave the disease uncontrolled. Hormone replacement therapy is not just symptom management. It restores critical physiologic functions needed for life itself. From insulin to thyroid hormones to cortisol, these therapies save millions of lives every day. Hormone suppression therapy works by reducing excessive hormone activity in the body. It is commonly used when hormones are causing disease or worsening symptoms. The goal is balance. Doctors try to lower hormone levels to a safer and healthier range. Methimazole is a classic example of hormone suppression therapy. It is mainly used to treat hyperthyroidism. In hyperthyroidism, the thyroid gland becomes overactive. Too much thyroid hormone speeds up the entire body. Patients may experience weight loss, sweating, anxiety, and rapid heartbeat. The metabolism basically gets stuck in overdrive. Methimazole blocks thyroid hormone production inside the thyroid gland. It interferes with iodine processing and hormone synthesis. As hormone levels fall, symptoms gradually improve. Heart rate slows down and energy balance returns closer to normal. Doctors carefully monitor thyroid function during treatment. Too much suppression can lead to hypothyroidism instead. Another important group is GnRH analogs. These drugs affect the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. At first, GnRH analogs may briefly increase hormone release. But with continuous use, the pituitary becomes less responsive. This eventually lowers estrogen and testosterone production. The body enters a temporary low hormone state. GnRH analogs are used in several medical conditions. Examples include prostate cancer, endometriosis, and precocious puberty. In prostate cancer, lowering testosterone can slow tumor growth. Some cancer cells depend heavily on hormones to survive. In endometriosis, reducing estrogen helps shrink abnormal tissue growth. This can decrease pain and inflammation. Aromatase inhibitors are another major hormone suppression therapy. These drugs block the aromatase enzyme. Aromatase normally converts androgens into estrogen. Blocking this step lowers estrogen levels in the body. These medications are especially important in hormone-sensitive breast cancer. Certain breast tumors grow faster in the presence of estrogen. By reducing estrogen production, aromatase inhibitors help slow cancer progression. They are commonly used after menopause. Examples include anastrozole, letrozole, and exemestane. Each works slightly differently but shares the same overall goal. Hormone suppression therapy can be highly effective, but it may also produce side effects related to low hormone levels. Patients may experience fatigue, hot flashes, or bone loss over time. Careful monitoring helps balance benefits and risks. These therapies show how powerfully hormones influence the body. By controlling hormone signals, medicine can treat a wide range of diseases. Pharmacokinetics explains what the body does to a drug after administration. In endocrine therapy, this is extremely important for safe and effective treatment. The first concept is bioavailability. This describes how much of a drug actually reaches the bloodstream. Some hormones are easily destroyed in the digestive tract. Others survive absorption much more effectively. For example, insulin cannot usually be taken as a simple oral tablet. Digestive enzymes would break it down before it could work. That is why insulin is commonly injected. This helps the drug enter circulation directly and efficiently. Levothyroxine is another good example. Its absorption can change depending on food, calcium, or iron supplements. That is why patients are often told to take it on an empty stomach. Small changes in absorption can affect hormone balance significantly. Next comes protein binding. Many hormones travel through the blood attached to carrier proteins. Only the free, unbound hormone is biologically active. The bound portion acts like a storage reserve. Thyroid hormones are heavily protein-bound in circulation. This helps stabilize hormone levels over time. Certain medications can compete for these binding proteins. That may suddenly increase active hormone levels in the bloodstream. Half-life is another major pharmacokinetic concept. It describes how long it takes for half of a drug to leave the body. Drugs with short half-lives need frequent dosing. Drugs with longer half-lives can be taken less often. Levothyroxine has a long half-life of several days. That allows once-daily dosing for many patients. Hydrocortisone has a shorter half-life. Its dosing schedule may need to mimic natural cortisol rhythms more closely. Understanding half-life helps doctors maintain stable hormone levels. It also helps prevent dangerous fluctuations. Metabolism is the final key concept. Most endocrine drugs are processed in the liver. Liver enzymes chemically modify hormones and medications. The body can then remove them more easily. Some drugs become active only after metabolism. Others are inactivated and prepared for excretion. Drug interactions are especially important here. Certain medications may speed up or slow down hormone metabolism. For example, enzyme-inducing drugs can lower hormone levels unexpectedly. Patients may then require dose adjustments. Age, liver disease, and kidney function also affect pharmacokinetics. That means endocrine therapy must often be individualized. Doctors carefully monitor symptoms and blood hormone levels over time. The goal is steady, physiologic control without toxicity. Pharmacokinetics may sound technical, but it has a simple purpose. It helps ensure hormones reach the right place, at the right amount, for the right duration. Patient monitoring is a critical part of endocrine therapy. Treatment does not end once a medication is prescribed. Doctors must constantly evaluate how the patient is responding. The goal is safe, stable, and effective hormone control. Clinical assessment is usually the first step. This focuses on symptoms, physical signs, and overall well-being. Doctors ask how the patient feels day to day. Energy levels, appetite, sleep, and mood can reveal a lot. In hypothyroidism, improving fatigue may suggest successful treatment. In hyperthyroidism, a slowing heart rate can be a positive sign. Physical examination also matters. Weight changes, blood pressure, and skin findings provide important clues. Some endocrine disorders progress slowly over time. Careful follow-up helps detect problems before complications appear. Laboratory monitoring is another essential tool. Hormone levels can be measured directly in the blood. For thyroid disease, doctors often check TSH and thyroid hormone levels. These tests help guide medication adjustments. In diabetes management, blood glucose and HbA1c are closely monitored. These values show both short-term and long-term glucose control. Adrenal disorders may require cortisol or ACTH measurements. Hormone testing helps confirm whether replacement therapy is adequate. Lab tests also improve medication safety. Too much hormone replacement can sometimes be dangerous. Excess thyroid hormone may strain the heart and bones. Excess corticosteroids can cause weight gain and high blood pressure. That is why dose adjustments are common in endocrine medicine. Treatment often changes based on test results and symptoms. Adverse effect surveillance is equally important. Every medication carries potential risks and side effects. Doctors actively watch for warning signs during therapy. Early detection helps prevent serious complications. For example, methimazole may rarely affect white blood cells. Patients are told to report fever or sore throat immediately. Long-term steroid therapy can weaken bones and suppress immunity. Regular monitoring helps reduce these risks. Insulin therapy may sometimes cause hypoglycemia. Patients must recognize symptoms like sweating, shakiness, and confusion. Monitoring is not only the doctor's responsibility. Patients play a major role in successful treatment. Education helps patients understand symptoms and medication schedules. Self-monitoring can improve both safety and treatment outcomes. Modern endocrine care is highly personalized. Two patients with the same disease may need very different treatment plans. Patient monitoring allows therapy to stay flexible and precise. It ensures hormones remain balanced as the body changes over time. In the end, monitoring is about more than lab numbers. It is about improving quality of life while keeping patients safe. Clinical case applications help connect endocrine theory to real patient care. They show how hormones affect the body in everyday clinical practice. Let's start with hypothyroidism. This condition happens when the thyroid gland produces too little hormone. Patients often feel tired and mentally slow. Weight gain and cold intolerance are also common symptoms. The metabolism essentially begins to slow down. Even simple daily activities may feel exhausting. Doctors usually confirm the diagnosis with blood tests. TSH levels are often elevated, while thyroid hormone levels are low. Treatment commonly involves levothyroxine replacement therapy. This restores normal thyroid hormone levels gradually over time. Patients usually need long-term monitoring and dose adjustments. The goal is stable hormone balance without overtreatment. Now let's look at adrenal suppression. This often occurs after prolonged corticosteroid therapy. When patients take steroids for a long time, the adrenal glands reduce natural cortisol production. The body becomes dependent on external steroid support. If steroids are stopped suddenly, serious complications may occur. The adrenal glands may not recover quickly enough. Patients can develop fatigue, low blood pressure, and even adrenal crisis. This can become life-threatening without treatment. Doctors usually taper steroid doses slowly. This gives the adrenal glands time to recover normal function. Hydrocortisone replacement may sometimes be required temporarily. Careful monitoring is extremely important during this process. Next is hypothyroidism. This is the opposite of hypothyroidism. Here, the thyroid gland becomes overactive and releases excess hormone. The body enters a hypermetabolic state. Patients may experience weight loss, sweating, tremors, and anxiety. Rapid heartbeat is another major symptom. One common cause is Graves' disease. This is an autoimmune disorder that overstimulates the thyroid gland. Diagnosis often includes low TSH and elevated thyroid hormone levels. Doctors may also use imaging or antibody testing. Treatment depends on the severity and cause. Methimazole is commonly used to block thyroid hormone synthesis. Beta blockers may also help control symptoms like palpitations and tremors. Some patients eventually require radioactive iodine therapy or surgery. Clinical case applications show how endocrine disorders affect real lives. They also demonstrate the importance of diagnosis, treatment, and long-term follow-up. Hormone balance is essential for nearly every organ system. Even small disruptions can produce major clinical effects. That is why endocrinology combines physiology, pharmacology, and patient-centered care. Understanding these cases helps transform theory into practical medicine. Pharmacists play a major role in endocrine therapy. They help patients use hormone medicines safely and effectively. Their job goes far beyond simply dispensing medication. Patient counseling is one of the most important responsibilities. Pharmacists explain how and when to take each medication. They also teach patients what side effects to watch for. This helps patients feel more confident about their treatment. For example, insulin users must learn proper injection techniques. They also need to recognize signs of low blood sugar quickly. Pharmacists can teach emergency steps for hypoglycemia management. Patients taking levothyroxine need special instructions too. The medicine works best on an empty stomach. Certain foods and supplements can reduce its absorption. Pharmacists help patients avoid these common mistakes. Dose optimization is another key role of the pharmacist. Hormone levels can change over time. That means medication doses may also need adjustment. Pharmacists review lab results and clinical responses carefully. In diabetes care, insulin doses may change with meals or exercise. In thyroid disease, levothyroxine doses depend on TSH levels. The goal is always to achieve hormonal balance safely. Adherence support is also extremely important in endocrine disorders. Many hormone therapies are long-term treatments. Some patients stop medication because they feel better. Others forget doses or struggle with complex schedules. Pharmacists help patients stay consistent with therapy. They may recommend reminders, pill organizers, or simplified regimens. Good adherence often leads to better disease control and fewer complications. Safety monitoring is another major responsibility. Hormone medications can cause significant side effects if misused. Pharmacists monitor for drug interactions and signs of toxicity. For example, excessive insulin can cause dangerous hypoglycemia. Too much thyroid hormone may trigger palpitations or anxiety. Long-term corticosteroid use can suppress adrenal gland function. Pharmacists also educate patients about warning signs that need medical attention. This encourages early intervention before complications become severe. Teamwork is essential in endocrine care. Pharmacists often collaborate with physicians, nurses, and dietitians. Together, they create personalized treatment plans for patients. Modern endocrine therapy is highly individualized. Every patient responds differently to hormone treatment. Pharmacists help fine-tune therapy for the best possible outcomes. In many ways, pharmacists act as medication experts and patient advocates. They improve safety, increase adherence, and support better quality of life. Their role is essential in successful endocrine disease management. Endocrine pharmacotherapy is all about restoring balance in the body. Hormones control growth, metabolism, stress, reproduction, and energy levels. When hormone levels become abnormal, the entire body can be affected. That's where endocrine medications become extremely important. These therapies help replace missing hormones or reduce excess hormone activity. The main goal is to bring the body back to normal function. For example, insulin helps control blood glucose in diabetes mellitus. Levothyroxine replaces thyroid hormone in hypothyroidism. Medications like methimazole reduce excessive thyroid hormone production. Each treatment is designed to mimic or modify natural physiology. That is why understanding normal endocrine function is essential. You cannot treat hormones properly without understanding how they normally work. The endocrine system also relies heavily on feedback mechanisms. Hormones constantly communicate with glands and target organs. A small imbalance can create widespread effects throughout the body. This is why endocrine pharmacotherapy requires careful precision. Too little medication may fail to control the disease. Too much medication can create dangerous side effects. Physiologic understanding helps healthcare professionals choose the right therapy. It also helps determine the correct dose and treatment schedule. Every patient responds differently to hormone therapy. Some patients need lifelong treatment and regular dose adjustments. Others may require short-term suppression of hormone activity. Treatment plans must always be individualized for each patient. Monitoring is another major part of endocrine care. It helps ensure that treatment is both effective and safe. Clinical assessment is often the first step in monitoring. Doctors and pharmacists look for symptom improvement over time. Energy levels, weight changes, heart rate, and mood are all important clues. These signs help determine whether therapy is working properly. Laboratory testing is equally important. Blood glucose levels guide insulin therapy. TSH and thyroid hormone levels guide thyroid treatment. Cortisol levels may be checked during steroid therapy. Monitoring also helps detect adverse effects early. For example, excessive insulin may cause hypoglycemia. Too much thyroid hormone can strain the heart. Long-term steroid use may suppress adrenal gland function. Regular follow-up visits improve treatment outcomes significantly. Patients also need education about medication adherence and side effects. Understanding therapy helps patients participate actively in their own care. In the end, endocrine pharmacotherapy combines science, physiology, and patient-centered care. The goal is not just treating disease. The goal is restoring stability, improving quality of life, and protecting long-term health. Thank you.